I'm told that I used to love watermelon when I was a kid. I mean, all kids do, right? There's a picture of me taken the first time that I tried it. This is me 45 years ago eating a slice of watermelon that's almost as big as me during a family holiday to India. I don't remember all that much about that holiday, apart from the watermelon and staying in the palace of the Maharaja of Baroda, kind of an Indian prince. My dad was friends with him, don't ask. Oh, and the other thing I remember is they used to keep crocodiles in the grounds, and the guy who looked after the crocodiles only had one arm. Kind of an occupational hazard, I guess. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Simon and I mostly talk about watches. If you like watch content, don't forget to click that subscribe button and go back and check out some of my other videos later. And if you can give this video an upvote, that'd also be hugely appreciated. So if you're into watches, unless you've been under a rock for the past year, you will have heard of the now famous Watermelon watch. These watches, which came out of nowhere back in the spring of 2021 and started life as a Kickstarter project, have absolutely taken the watch world by storm, and they've become a real fan favourite in the watch community. It was the brainchild of Richard Benck, a young British product designer, and now an entrepreneur and the owner of micro-brand Studio Underd0g. And it really is a micro-brand in the full sense. Whereas a lot of small businesses go to great lengths to make it look like they have a bigger team, on the Studio Underd0g website, Richard makes no bones about the fact that he's a team of one. This first model, the Bicompass chronograph, blends traditional, almost retro-inspired design details with bright, vivid, almost fluorescent colours and a quirky dial design that has these asymmetric subdials and off-centre branding. But while the layout of the dial looks random and almost out of balance from a design perspective, everything about this watch has actually been incredibly well thought through. The positioning of the branding at the 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock positions is no accident. It's actually been positioned there rather than below the 12 o'clock marker as you would normally come to expect, so that that chronograph seconds hand doesn't intersect it when it's at its resting position. It's just so clever, and it makes you wonder why more watch brands don't do this. And on the watermelon version, not only does that textured red dial really look like the flesh of a watermelon, but the indices have been designed to look like pips. Even the brand name itself, Studio Underd0g, I think is really clever. It tells you instantly what this brand is all about. A design-led micro-brand that's trying to compete with the big boys. A David trying to compete with the Goliaths of the watch world. And you can't help but feeling that these fun and irreverent little watches, grabbing so much attention in the watch media over the last year, is like a real middle finger to the Swiss watch industry and its typically conservative approach to design. So aside from the aforementioned watermelon, there's a version that's got a blue and sand-coloured dial, which is known as the Desert Sky. There's one that's got a mint green and chocolate brown dial, which is appropriately known as the Mint Choc Chip. And there's a black and white version that's known as the Goofy Panda, because of its asymmetric panda dial. So I missed out on the first release of these watches, but I managed to pick up 2 of the 4 versions available on the second release. I chose a Desert Sky for myself, and I managed to put a watermelon in my shopping cart for my brother just before they all sold out. This Desert Sky version has a blue gradient to the centre of the dial with a really nice texture, and that larger subdial, the 30-minute counter, and the chapter ring are in sand colour. For me, I think this is a perfect colourway. It's a little bit more subdued than the watermelon, but I really love that vivid blue dial. And whereas the watermelon has real summer vibes, I think this is one that you could wear all year round. So all of these watches use the Seagull ST1901 movement. That's a manual winding column wheel chronograph that's based on the Venus 175 and manufactured in China. Now, I'd had a yearning for a manual wind watch with an exhibition case back. I think ever since I reviewed the Omega Speedmaster Apollo 8, the Dark Side of the Moon. Now, this is no Omega, and the movement in this watch certainly isn't as well finished as the one in the Apollo 8, but it's still fun to watch those cogs turning, and I think it really reminds you that this is a machine on your wrist, much more so I think than automatic watches do. It's housed in a 38.5mm case, which for someone with a smaller wrist like me is a really wearable size. It might be a touch on the thick side for some at 13.6mm, but that really doesn't bother me. It has a 20mm lug width, so strap changes are going to be no problem at all. And this version 2 is supplied with a really nice leather strap made by a British independent strap maker called the Strap Tailor. It is of course 20mm at the lugs, but tapers down to 16mm at the buckle. And I have to say, this strap really is excellent quality, if not perhaps a little stiff, though that might be because I haven't worn this watch very much as yet, and over time it might become a bit more subtle once it breaks in. So the price of these version 2s was £530, so around $580. Now, that was about £100 more than the initial release, but I guess that this handmade strap accounts for some of that additional cost. Though with these things selling out fast and a lot of people missing out, they've been trading for a premium on sites like eBay and Chrono24. However, a third release was announced just a few weeks ago, and this time, instead of being on a first-come, first-served basis, buyers were given a 6-hour pre-order window, so anyone who ordered one within that time was guaranteed to have one delivered in the spring of 2023. So hopefully more of these watches are going to be getting onto the wrists of enthusiasts pretty soon. Now, Rich at Studio Underdog has recently announced that he's working on his next design, which is going to be a completely new watch due to be launched sometime in the first half of 2023. And I for one can't wait to see what he comes up with next. Guys, I'd love to know what you think of these Studio Underdog watches, so let me know in the comments. And if you managed to get one, tell me which version you chose. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Cheers.